Hey everyone, my name is Alex, and today I'm going to be showing you how to do a speed paint job for White Scars Space Marines. So to start off our painting process, I primed these models with a gray undercoat and then a zenithal of white using Army Painter spray paints. So our first paint that we're going to use here is Army Painter Speed Paint Blinding Light. For all of this paint job, I'm going to try to use as much Army Painter as I can because I feel like that's a really great brand, especially like their new range specifically. And I'd really like to test these colors out a lot more. So make sure to give it a really good shake, especially these contrast paints, or their speed paints, I should say. Throw some of that on the palette. And here we can see I have a brush that's not a super great brush, but it still has a decent point to it. It doesn't need a very fine tip at all, but I like to use this brush because it can hold a lot of paint. You can see the like belly of the brush is pretty thick, so it's a really great brush for this specific application. So we're gonna take the paint here and be pretty liberal with it all over, and we're gonna make sure we're going really quick with this. Again, this is a speed painting process, so we gotta be quick with it. And the speed paint lends itself towards that, in that if you are not quick enough, it will dry not properly and it will look all messy. But this is just to get that initial shading into some of those spots there, into some of those recesses. And it's looking pretty good. So we'll do this to the entire models, or to both these models all over, and then we'll come back with the next color. We got our white done there, looking pretty good. You can already see some of the details popping out a little bit more. Next up, we're gonna use the black. Use Grim Black, and this is gonna go into all of the like undersuit, so there, and we're gonna go over the entire bolt gun. Actually, no, not the entire thing, the just the casing, so like this part and the handle there, as much as we can get that. And if we get any on some areas over here on accident, we're gonna quick wash our brush and then try to soak up that paint and dilute it with some water. So hopefully it can get caught up or all cleaned up pretty quickly there. We'll also be hitting the areas like these little pipes there and the little circle on the helmet. And we're also gonna try to do the inside of the eye lens there as well. And that is because eye lenses pop a lot better if you do a black coat first, and then you go in with a normal paint, not a speed paint, and do the lens there, because it creates a contrast, like a black contrast for that red paint that we're gonna do for the eye lens to pop out a little bit better later on. So yeah, we're gonna get that on the palette, and I'll show you guys one bolt gun first here. You can see my brush as well is kind of, it's like a crappy brush here. It doesn't have like a super great point to it, but we don't really need a great point for this one. You just need a steady hand and a somewhat decent point. And again, the brush, it's a longer brush. Like the belly of it is a little bit bigger, so it can retain some more of that paint. So here we go. So as you can see, like, I'm getting it on those parts that will be silver, and that's okay. I'm not trying to cover the entire part of it, really. Because the black will lend to the shadows once we do that silver later as well. Yeah, see, that bolt gun was really easy to do. So now I'll continue doing that along all the various black areas. So I'm gonna show you guys how to clean up any of the black if you get a little bit of overspill too. Like you can already tell on this knee pad, I had a little mistake there, just a little bit right there. But it's not really noticeable, especially like if I hold it back this far, which is about what you're gonna be, like the distance when you're gonna be looking at it tabletop wise, you can't even notice it. And this is a speed paint as well, so it's not really meant to be like an award-winning paint job. Okay, so here we go. Let's put this on here. Oh, get that in focus. So there, like I went over a bit there, right? So I'm gonna wash my brush off really quick, just like that. Still some water on there. And just try to clean that up, soak it up. Brush it off again. My brush is still wet here, but it's just clean water there. And there we go. That's relatively clean. You can still see the stain a little bit there, but you know, like that's really not that big of a deal when you're looking at the model like this far away. And we're gonna do some battle damage on this too, so it really, you won't even be able to notice it. But yeah, that's a quick way to clean up your mistakes with contrast paint, and specifically black on top of white. Like I know that's a really big contrast there in terms of color, and like you saw, you can barely even notice it. But yeah, I'm gonna continue this black and then we'll come back with the next color. So we've got all of our black parts done now. As you can see in the eyes, it's not totally black, but around the recesses it's black, and that's really the most important part there. And the nice thing with the contrast paint is you can get some on your brush and essentially just touch it in there, and it will conform to those crevices in the eye sockets there, the lenses. All right, so next we're gonna do the red. I don't have the speed paint for red, so instead we're gonna be using this contrast Flesh Tearers red. This is a little bit of a darker red, and you know, depending on how you want to paint your white scars, you can go darker or a lighter red, like a Blood Angels red, for instance. But we're gonna use this Flesh Tearers. So if you have a steady hand and a very fine point brush, you can do like the freehand, like how a lot of times white scars will have like kind of a jagged pattern, like this, right? If you have a steady hand and you're confident enough to do that, definitely go for it. But right now we're keeping it really simple. So what I'm gonna do is start shaking this up. And again, this is like, this is just a battle ready, like speed paint here, right? So we're gonna get some of this on there. This is the same brush I was using last time, right? So I'm just gonna do this entire knee pad, just so that it kind of breaks up that white. We don't want the entire model to be one single color. See, very steady with that, because this is actually going to be a lot harder to remove than the black, to be completely honest with you guys. And again, we're going to go in there and hit these little chest details, being very careful as we apply. So I'm going to go in and try to demonstrate that on this one. See, being very methodical. And as I'm doing this too, I also have a camera right in front of my face here, so it's a little bit difficult for me. So if I can do this with a camera in my face, you guys can definitely do it too. And as you may notice, the angle in which I'm attacking this is I'm going like top down like that. So I'm sliding my brush in between his armor there and the gun, so that I'm not hitting any other little details, hopefully. See, and I'm running it just along those edges, being very cautious. And see, don't be afraid to flip the model around too, like that, so you can get better angles. There we go. And this part's gonna be a little bit tricky, but I think I can get in there. It's all about going slow, being very deliberate. My arms are also resting on the table. That helps out. So there we go. See, I was able to get that in there without hitting any of the other parts. There are a couple other little details, like I might do some shoulder pad rims. I'll do like a little skull in the backpack red. Yeah, and the purity seals, of course. So I'll do all that, and then we'll come back with the next color. All right, so we got that red done. Looking pretty nice there. I was able to do a little jagged pattern there. And I did the rim of that shoulder pad just to break it up. So then when it's sitting on the tabletop about that far, it looks pretty good. And each guy has a little bit of variation too. So next we're gonna put on the silver. We're gonna use broadsword silver. It's kind of like a gunmetal silver. And of course we're gonna be putting that on all of the guns and all the little embellishments that they have on there too. And we'll also be putting that on the little parts there on the helmet, the little circles there and the little pipes and such. Yeah, so that's all of the pieces there, I believe. So here we're gonna put all those there. And then we're gonna come back in with the gold, and we're going to be using this gold, Hoplite gold, and putting that on the little skull there and any other details, maybe like the shell casing there. So yeah, we'll do that and we'll be right back. So our last color that we'll be using in terms of the contrast stuff is Argon Dunes. Again, I don't have a speed paint equivalent for this, but we'll be using this for the parchment areas, such as here and right up here. And again, I'm just using the same thinner brush, not a super great tip, but it gets the job done here, and it allows for a fast coverage. As you can see, all the silver is done there. It's looking pretty good, and all the gold as well. So I did the gold little studs here. Again, just a little bit of variation there. And you can see like I kind of spilled over a little bit on that part, but it's really not a big deal because once again, like this is just a speed paint and you're gonna be looking at the models like that far away and you can't really tell the difference. So now we're just gonna hit that with the parchment, and then we're gonna come back and put some of the final touches on these models. So we've got those parchments done there. And now really the last bit of detail is to do the eyes. So these are our three colors we're gonna be using. We're gonna start off with Dragon Red, then Flickering Flame, and then in a matte white. So really these two parts are not necessary, but I like to put in that little bit of extra work on just the eye specifically, because if you pick up a model, your focal point is the head. So I like to put in that little bit of extra work on the lenses. So now I switch out my brush. This is a very fine tip brush. It may not look as fine tip because it's zoomed in right here, but you can tell it's a pretty dang fine tip. So we're gonna get a little bit of red on here. So as you can see, that's not very much at all on my brush. And then we're gonna go in, and let me get that in focus here. We're gonna go in and just touch it a little bit there in the center. We're not trying to get the entire model, the entire eye lens, that color, just the red, or just so that there's still a black outline. So you can see I kind of messed up a little bit on there, but that's not a huge deal. There we go. So like you saw, I was kind of poking in at it. I'll do this other one too to show you guys here. There we go. So just like that, see, so you can still see the black outline. And you know, there's a little bit of red on there, but if we zoom out again, like you can't really even tell. It's not that big of a deal if you do a little bit of overspill. So after that step, we're then going to take the orange, this Flickering Flame, shake it up, get a little bit on the palette, just a little bit, so you're not wasting too much. And now, Again, just a little tiny bit on the brush. And we're gonna highlight. So really you could leave it at this as is. It's looking pretty good already. But I like to put in this little extra step. It doesn't take that long. Just like that in the lens. Just kind of poking. Boom, just like that. See that? So now it stands out even more. And we bring it back here. Oh, we bring it back like that. And see how much that already stands out like that. Just highlighting it with that orange. So now, the finishing touch, I'm sure most people have seen this. You take the little white, and just a little bit of white there, and we put a little tiny dot up in the corner of the Space Marine's eye lens. This gives the illusion of like a glare. All right, so we're gonna zoom in here. Try to get this in focus. Just a little dot like that, right? So you can see I kind of touched it to the lens, or to the helmet itself, and that was by accident. Yep, just like that. Oh, get that in focus. See that? That's looking really good already. And you saw that in real time. It did not take that long at all. Zoom out. Get that in focus. There we go. See, that looks like a really good Space Marine right there. So from here, we'll put our transfer on, and you could really call it a day, but you should also base your miniatures. So I'll show you a really quick, effective basing scheme that makes white scars specifically pop out really well on the tabletop. So I'm gonna go do the other islands on the other Space Marine. I'm gonna put some texture paint on them, and then I'll come back with the optional basing and weathering, the weathering scheme that I do for white scars. All right, so I put the texture paint on. I also did some little freehand designs there so that we can show that they're white scars. Now you don't have to do that. You can do your own transfer sheets or just not mark them at all. But I just did that a little bit to make them stand out on the tabletop a little more. So for the basing, our first coat is gonna be Mournfang Brown. So with this, you might have to do 2 coats because you kind of want to water it down a little bit so that it gets into all of the recesses of the sand or texture paint, whatever you may be using. But it's really important that this coat specifically has even like flat coverage. You don't really want any of the texture from or any of the color from the texture paint to be showing through on this. You want that solid orangey kind of color on these bases. And try not to get too much on the model. A little bit around like the bottom of the boots is okay. Just like that, how it kind of spilled over. That's okay. But you don't want to be getting it too much like on the shins and stuff like that. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll get back to the next parts. Alrighty, so we have that solid base coat done there. Now we're going to take this XV88 and we're going to dry brush it all over the base. And we're also going to dry brush it onto the shins, some of the lower parts of the models. So it's going to be a pretty heavy dry brush here. So you can see a lot of this is getting off of there, like pretty easily there. So I didn't wipe off too much when I used the paper towel. And then when we hit the bottoms here, we're gonna apply pretty heavily. At least I like to. I feel it really draws it into the environment, makes the miniature feel like a part of the environment. But we don't want to cover it entirely because we still want some of that white to show through. Because we don't want them to look muddy, we want it to look dusty. See, so like as you can see, like on these shin guards there, you can very clearly still see that there's white there. So that's pretty much about the look that we're going for there. So we're gonna finish up on the actual base itself, and then without cutting, we'll go right into the next part after I finish this. Really make sure to get this color, because you really want this color visible on the base part itself. There we go. Next, we're going to use the same exact brush, really without washing it, and go into Xandri Dust. So same thing pretty much, just a little bit lighter this time. I like to get some more off on my hand. There we go, just highlighting that. And this really accentuates all of the texture that's on the ground there. Boom, that's looking really nice actually. So then I like to grab just a little bit of that extra paint there, and I kind of smear it around on here, build up the different layers of dust. Might have gone a little bit too heavy, but even still, I think that looks pretty dang good. And then one more step that I like to add, I washed that brush now. One more step that I like to add is a stippling. So I'll usually take a pretty crappy brush, like this one will do. As you can see, it's super frayed, and that's pretty much what we want though. So we're gonna take this very dark brown, oak brown, put some on the palette. So we want this like kind of dry but also frayed brush like that, because it will add to the randomness of this pattern. And we're gonna get this along the tips of the bristle, hopefully not really on the belly though, just like that. And I usually kind of go like that just to test it out and get some of the paint off, and then I start from the bottom and go up, and then I just go like this, just kind of all around, adding some texture, some scratches. It really helps break up the white, and it makes it more blended into its environment. It almost tells a story, like these guys have been fighting for a while and that they're fighting a hard battle. It also is a little trick. So because this is a speed paint, we didn't really take time. We didn't do highlights, and we didn't really do too much we didn't do pin shading or anything like that, right? So by doing this, it's a cheap way to add more texture and more depth to the model. See, so maybe I went a little bit crazy on that one, but even still, like if we hold that back, right? Like look at that. It already has way more texture than this clean model. And you know, that's cool too if you have like some clean models in your army, because maybe they're fresh into the fight. But yeah, this is the last step that I usually do for my white scars. A little cheap way to highlight almost, or it's like a reverse highlight. Add some contrast to the model, tell a story, and really tie it into its environment. And a lot of models that I see on the tabletops, they usually don't have battle damage. People usually like to try to paint their models up like really prim and proper, almost as though they're on a parade field doing some drill and ceremony or something. But yeah, I think that looks pretty dang good. No more on the helmet. There we go. So get a little bit close up. I'll do the black rim, and then we'll get some final photos of these guys. All right, and there we have it, everyone. There's our two White Scars Marines. This is a very quick speed paint job, looking really good for the tabletop, I think. Like honestly, I'd be very happy to have an entire army painted like these guys. I already have a pretty sizable force painted like these guys, but to be honest, I didn't develop this scheme until pretty recently. So I took a lot of time putting like 3+ hours into each of my Marines, and I really wish I wouldn't have done that and gone with this scheme instead, because this paint job pattern, it looks really nice, and it just doesn't take a lot of time. Like, to be honest, the painting and the model itself, not the basing, but just the model, was maybe like an hour, give or take. The basing time probably was like an hour between both of these. That includes like putting the texture paint on and doing the black rim and all that, and the tufts and all that kind of stuff. So realistically, you could definitely get these guys done, like a 5-man squad, done in 2 painting sessions, which I think is a really, really good bang for your buck in terms of time wise. You could definitely get an army of these guys cranked out in no time. So that's all for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any comments or suggestions, let me know. Anything that you would do differently for this paint scheme, definitely let me know. And stay tuned for more videos to come. Thank you very much for watching, everyone.